Welcome to What Are You Even Talking About, a podcast where we talk a little bit about everything. Today's guest is Kaelen Marie, a pleasure coach, spiritual teacher, and energy healer. She is the founder and CEO of Celebrate You, a transformative platform dedicated to helping women heal and release sexual trauma caused by religious conditioning and patriarchy. Through Celebrate You, she empowers women to reconnect with their natural divine state of pleasure and bliss, reclaiming their bodies and their power after experiencing sexual abuse. As a survivor herself, Kaylin deeply understands the shame, guilt, and fear that often accompanies sexual trauma. Personal healing journey has inspired her to create a safe, supportive space where women can release these burdens and embrace their wholeness. With compassion and wisdom, she guides others on the path of liberation, self-love, and spiritual reconnection. Thank you for being here today.
Oh, it
I'm
is such a
excited.
pleasure, Mark. Thank you so very much.
So we do this thing on the show where every guest gets to ask a question to the next guest without knowing who the next guest is.
Ooh, that's
So
juicy.
yeah, I got this off of another podcast, which I stole it. I definitely stole it, but I like the thought behind it. So your question is a doozy.
Uh, Honey, my whole life's a doozy. Bring it on.
Okay. So the full question is, what's one thing that you don't want to do that you still do that helps to build the structure in your brain that creates willpower? What's the one thing you don't want to do in life, but you still find a way to get it done?
Tech issues. Like being in this business, you have to understand because of COVID, and we have to give thanks to COVID, even though virtual things had started previously. Um, when COVID hit, like we started going into this tech area, right? And understanding Zoom and all the stuff that goes with it when you are doing any type of virtual coaching session or a virtual event or a podcast. And it is something that that I struggle with. Like it's not like I would rather just be, hey, let me just speak, let me have fun, and let me engage with my people, and then I'm like, it's like doing laundry. It's like you clean the house and then there's still laundry, but you have to do it because you need to wear clean clothes. So
Yeah.
for me, it's like I love doing what I do. And then there's the tech because in order to get it out there, you still have to understand the tech. And I keep thinking, can I hire this out? And I get this little voice in the back of my head that says, this
Learn it.
is teaching you great things. You're going to be grateful one day that you've learned all of these things. And if you may not have a person that can do it, but you will know how to do it. So in the meantime, I'm just like, breathe in and breathe out and go, I've got this. And then because I'm this spiritual being, I call on I literally I do this, like this is legit. I call on my tech angels. I'm like, okay, I need all my tech angels, come down, tell me what to do, funnel it for me, help me figure this out. Every time, dude, they always show up, they guide me, and I figure stuff out. Like last week, we were on the podcast together, right?
Yep.
And I was just like so inspired by everybody. And I told you all that I was going to start a podcast, and I did. And I started it, right? And so
Yeah.
as soon as we were done with the call, I'm like, okay, we're going to go and do this YouTube channel thing. And so I get all the YouTube channel stuff, and then I go to Canva and I create like my little thing, my banner, and then the next night I'm having my first interview. And I'm like, okay, and I'm thinking, oh, all I have to do is just invite them to be on the YouTube live and it'll record. It'll be great. Oh, it doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way. So what happens is you can only have on the computer, it's only you. You can't invite people in. And if you do invite someone in, it has to be on mobile. And that wasn't working for me. And I'm like, I don't know if we can swear on here, but I'm like, F it, you know?
Yeah, you go ahead.
Oh,
Yeah.
God, I'm like, fuck it. Fuck it, fuck it, fuck it. I'm like, I'm just not going to do this. And so then I'm like, you know what? We're just going to go with Zoom. So then, which meant I did the recording, and then I had to figure out how to I know how to download it, but then upload it into YouTube and get it where it needed to go. I did it. Did I get a little more gray hair that night? Yes, I did, but I did it.
See, wait until you start having to edit stuff.
Oh, and I've just decided I'm not going to edit. I'm just gonna go. I'm just like, fuck that shit too.
That's
Oh,
what I do. That's what I do. I don't edit nothing. I might cut a piece out, and that's about it as far as my editing goes. And which
right.
probably is why I don't have as many subscribers and watchers as I should. But I just, for the life of me, I don't understand it enough to make it better. Like I would just make it worse. And all the programs I've seen for it are way too expensive to help. Like everything is so pricey nowadays, especially when it comes to like making your own content on for YouTube or like Spotify. However, Spotify, you can put your podcast on there and you can just do the audio.
Oh,
Yeah.
there's so many things I'm learning. So I know I'm gonna put everything onto Spotify. Um, and I'm just like, and I know I want to do an intro and an outro, and I'll get to those. And I figure it's this beautiful, even though it's very challenging, really, it's this beautiful opportunity of learning as I go, like we had said earlier, and just being able to say, okay, what's my next immediate step that I need to know now in this now moment? Because if I future cast, it's too painful and then I just fuck it up in my brain, and I don't like that. I need to
I
have it just
understand.
be, like, in this moment and, like, "Okay, what's here? What's now?" And then just go from there, and then what happens is my tech angels, they'll give me these hits. It's like, "Ooh, do this. Ooh, do this." And I'm like, "Oh, good idea." You know?
Yeah.
And it works, and then it works. So,
Well,
how effectively, we'll soon find out.
if you need any help, let me know, and I will definitely help you from what a little bit I know. And maybe
Excellent.
we
How
can,
long have you been doing your podcast?
I've been doing this podcast in one way, shape, or form for the last 2 to 3 years.
Nice.
And like when I first started, I only did videos of me back when I was in a psychosis. I was in a deep psychosis.
Mm,
And I wanted to have a recording of basically the things I was going through. So
mm,
people couldn't tell me that I was lying or people couldn't tell me it didn't happen. Like I documented every single thing. I journaled every day, all the things that were happening in my life. I recorded videos every day of my life. And that way I had these records for when people tried, to, gaslight me, that I was like, no, because on this day I have it recorded what exactly you did, and I'm explaining it right after you did it. And I have
mm.
it written down that, all the things that happened this day. And I kept telling myself, I know I'm in a psychosis, but it's important to write down your experience and to record your experience because that way you have the record. You can go back and be like, no, that wasn't a psychosis day. That was people treating me unfairly or wrong.
Yeah,
And I have a record of that and I can remember it and be angry about it like I should be.
yeah,
And they don't try to tell you something to get you off of that topic or tell you that never happened. You're like, no, no, it did. And now I'm upset and it moves me to get past it. And I know who I can trust and all of that.
mhm.
So it helped a lot. But then I turned it into the podcast where I started interviewing other people.
Oh
And
my goodness. Define for me, what is psychosis, though? Like, when that
um
happens, help me with that.
it's different for everybody who goes through it. But
Yeah,
some of the biggest things that happen is you might see things that aren't there, might hear
um,
things that aren't there.
gotcha.
You can taste and touch things that aren't there.
Mhm.
Most people don't know that. It's a part of my diagnosis of schizoaffective disorder. And but so many people go through a psychosis in their lifetime and never have a diagnosis of a mental illness.
Mm,
At any point in your life, you can go through one, and it can alter your perspective on life. And for me,
mhm.
it turned into a spiritual awakening.
I knew
And
that. That was my next thing I wanted to ask you.
yes,
Okay.
like it literally turned into a spiritual awakening. I dealt with all the things in my life that were, problems for me. How people
Mhm.
treated me, what I didn't like about myself, what I didn't like in others, significant others, all of this, like, and it turned into I saw people as different deities. So like my mom was a different deity. Like when I was by myself, I talked to God every day. He talked back.
Mhm.
It was wild and it was terrifying.
Mhm.
Like, and then like each day God would have give me a task to do for that day, and I
Mm.
would do it. And my neighbors thought I went crazy. Everybody thought I went crazy. And I
Yeah.
was like, I didn't really go crazy. What happened was I stopped taking crap from people. Like I said exactly what I thought, what came to my head. And if I didn't like what they said, I let them know, probably in a harsher tone than I should have, but I let them know. And I didn't take crap from anybody. And because of that, people learned how to treat me. And the whole time I was dealing with all of that, I was also trying to get back into school. I was also trying to get a job. I was also trying to see my kids. Like I was doing a lot and I was learning like at every moment I could. And I was also learning how to draw because I always wanted to learn how to draw. And I'd been drawing for about 2 years before that. And I just kept drawing every day, all day, and I danced, I sang at the top of my lungs. I had an experience that, for the most part, changed my entire outlook on things, and I realized I didn't wanna be as negative as I'd always been. Like, I realized how negative I had been in my life, and I was the only person that could change that.
Mhm.
So, I started watching a whole bunch of psychology stuff and mental health stuff and personal wellness things. And I fought my way out of negativity. And even though I was still like journaling very negative about the situations I was going through, I had to realize that's not my mindset being negative. That was what was going on and happening to me that were
Mhm.
negative things.
Mm.
And like I would try to explain it to people and they just like, we don't believe you because you have your diagnosed schizoaffective. So they don't listen to you because they think you're
Mm.
crazy. And
Yeah.
so it made it hard, but it was needed. Like,
Mhm.
it literally got me to the place where I am now, where I have over 30 certifications in mental health, life coaching, and project management. Like,
Yeah.
and I talk to amazing people like you every day,
Mm.
and I get to show people that just because I have a mental illness and I'm diagnosed autistic, I just got that diagnosis this week.
Oh.
And yeah, so, with all of that, I'm still doing the things I wanna do in life, and I'm trying to make an impact. So and anybody can do that.
I love, 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 love this. The resiliency of the human soul is mind-boggling. My mom, oh, God rest her beautiful soul. She was my bestie. And she was born with a small kidney, and the other one wasn't working so well. And by the time I was in my late 20s, she had gone into kidney failure. And so she wound up being on for her first kidney. She wound up being on dialysis. No, she wound up being on the wait list for 3 years, 3 years, 3 years. And so she would do dialysis every day, every day. And might I say, like, my mom and dad, they traveled. My mom didn't care. She's like, "I still love life." And so literally, they would hop on a plane and they would have the solution being, delivered to the hotel that they were going to. They would be in the vehicle and do road trips, and they would heat up the solution in the back car window. I mean, they worked around it, and my mom, she lit if she had had all of her kidneys, I don't even know, the woman would be like Superwoman. She would just be, like, going all the time, right? So when we say this, it's like we may have these limitations, but the only thing that limits us is what we put ourselves up in here. And when we let that go, and my mom was just this beautiful example, and her name was Joycelyn. And her mom and dad named her that because of the joy that she brought. And the joy that she brought to this world was outstanding, down to her very last breath when she was in the hospital, and she was in and out of hospitals, oh my gosh, my whole life. Like, I grew up having a kitchen a cabinet full of her medication, you know, and mom was just always sick. It's just, but that didn't stop us. We still did stuff, and it didn't stop her. She was like, okay, let's go. Come on, come on. We got things to do. We're going to go do this. She honored herself. When she wasn't feeling well, she would, rest. But I firmly believe, I know this in my soul, that her being sick, quote unquote sick, 'cause she wound up actually having 2 kidney transplants. She was a quadruple heart bypass patient. She had so many infections, I can't even begin to name them all. She survived colon cancer in her early 70s. I mean, the woman was amazing. But every time she was in a doctor's office, a hospital, she brought joy to every single one of those people, and she was one of the sickest people I ever knew in my life. And yet she was like, "This is what I've got, but it's not gonna stop me." And she would just go, and that is something I cherish because
It's
she taught
learn
the
from.
resiliency.
Yeah, I definitely see that,
Yeah,
and we need more people like that in our
yeah.
world because it literally, if you can't be stopped, nothing will ever get in your way.
No,
Like
no.
you can literally do anything that you want, and when you do whatever the things that you want, it moves you forward in your life. Like it lets you learn more, it lets you do more. More that you do, the more you can do.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't realize that because they're stuck in a mindset that keeps them stunted and it keeps them stuck in the mud. And they say, well, I can't do it. And it's like, but you could if you tried.
Mhm.
What's really stopping you? And the thing that's usually stopping us is ourselves.
Oh,
Like we'll
oh,
tell ourselves all day that we
200%.
can't.
Yeah. And yet
That's
we flip that. We flip that and we step into our magic. We step into our power. We step into literally the realm of miracles. Because when we say, I once again, fuck it, I'm just gonna do it. I'm just gonna go do it, right? And things open up. Like I say this to myself all the time. I always have everything I need when I need it, and I do. Like I always have everything I need when I need it. And everything always works out for me, and everything always, always works out for me. Like it always does. And I just sit back and I'm like, I know it's because of the lessons that I've been taught by my parents and by, example of other people. But when we sit down and we take a look at the resiliency of the human soul, there's nothing that will stop us except when we choose to stop it. Right? And I'm at a point in my life, I'm at this beautiful place in my life where I mean, the shit's gonna happen, right? Stuff's gonna happen. And it's like the fears, the stuff that like stops us in our tracks, um, still comes up, triggers still come up. And I'm at a point where I'm like, okay, you're here. And I know the only way to deal with this is to go right through it. I have to. And so I've gotten to this place to where I'm like, okay, there's the lion, and I'm looking at it straight in its eyes. And I'm like, okay, and I gather up all of my guides, my guardians, my angels, and all of and I'm like, let's go because I got to do this, and nothing can hold me back except me. And when I do stay in that stuck phase, oh, the physical. Like, I get sick and and I get depressed and it's horrid. I don't like living there. That's not me. That's not any human, to be honest with you. And so when I'm like, okay, I know that the medicine that I need is through here. So if I'm
yep.
resisting, I gotta go. And I go because my cure is on that other side, right? And now I'm at a point, it's just like, okay, this is what I have to do. And is it uncomfortable? Yes. Does it hurt? Yes. Is it painful? Yes. Are there tears? Yes. Or there's a lot of swearing? Yes. And we do it anyway.
It's beautiful. That is so beautiful because I mean I do the same thing. I know that you have to keep moving and you
You
have
have
to
to keep
you have
moving.
to go take those things that get in your way out of the way, or they'll stay
Yeah.
there. And the longer they stay there, the angrier or sadder you get. I choose to get angry. That's what I was talking about on the podcast that we were on.
Mhm.
So just to say, first off, because most people don't know, we were on a podcast together. Was it 2 weeks ago now?
Oh,
Maybe a week
just a
ago.
week ago
Just like
yesterday,
just
dude.
a week ago. Yeah,
Just
just
a
a week
week
ago.
ago. Feels like 2 weeks.
Yeah. We were on a podcast and the topic was putting yourself out there. And you have to live by that because you don't get anywhere when you don't. And I remember telling you guys that I wanted to be on a TED Talk. That's what I really want to do. So I did just like you did. As soon as that podcast was over, I went and got the application that Carla sent us, and I went and filled out one, and I sent it in. And I was like, okay, I did my part. So if I'm on there, great. If I'm not, I have a whole list of other ones I can send letters to see if I can get on those. So like what she sent us helped out so much. It made the process so much easier because I had people trying to sell me getting on TED Talks. And like literally that's their whole job now is, well, I was on a TED Talk, so let me pay me and I'll teach you how I got on the TED Talk.
Right, right, right,
And
right.
but if you go on the website for TED Talk, they say don't do that.
Huh.
Yeah, they're
That's
really big.
interesting.
Yeah, they're really big on people not paying to try to be on a TED Talk because there's no way
Yeah.
they can, validate. They can't say that you're going to be on this TED Talk just because you took this course for a TED Talk.
Right, right.
So yeah, so like I was like, I'm glad I didn't pay the money now
Yeah,
because I sure did try, and I was like, that didn't work out, and I'm glad it didn't. Now it was, the universe literally saying you don't need that. Just put an application.
yeah,
Just put an application,
yeah,
and hopefully I'll find out soon if I'm going to be on one.
yeah.
So we'll
And
see.
and look at us taking action. I'm curious to see what Charlotte and Barbara, what 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 inspired them to take some further actions.
Yeah, me too.
Because it was really, really the four of us coming together, it was really powerful and impactful. And then having Kim moderate was just like or host, I should say, it was just so beautiful.
Yeah,
So
I literally told her today. I was like, this last week has been trying because all the stuff I'm dealing with. But then I was like, you know what? I told her, I said, at the end of the day, everything works out for me.
it
I
does,
was
it
like,
does.
no matter what I do, it always works out. So
Yeah.
I'm just gonna keep doing what I'm doing because I know it's the right way to do things. Because it's my way of doing things.
Yes. And you know what? I mean, look at us both. Really, we all have 100% success rate on getting through hard stuff.
Yeah,
It may just be different than others, but we get through it, because
great.
once again, that's the resiliency of the human soul and the magic that is there. And when we understand that we are our magic, like, oh, but I feel first and foremost, in order for us to understand that we are our magic, we have to go into those places of loving all of us that doesn't feel that it's lovable. And yet that's the part that needs the love the most,
Yeah,
right? I love to call it spiritual spelunking, going down into, and just because everything within us is asking to be illuminated because we've asked to have our dark be illuminated. But in order to get to have it be illuminated, we have to go in the darkness. And if we can go into the darkness while still holding the light, that's when we start seeing the magic that's literally within the soul. And it's
I
powerful.
like to I like to tell myself that I am the fire, and nothing can consume the fire. It can
Mm,
it can add to the fire. You can
yeah.
always make the fire bigger, but
Mhm.
nothing is going to extinguish that fire
Mm,
except yourself.
mhm.
So keep burning. And
Yeah.
that's why I tell people anger is my way to go about things. People, some people get depressed, some people, have to calm themselves, but I use the anger that's in me, that's always been in me to
Mm,
push me forward. And I don't mean anger as in like a violent state or anything, just the anger that you have when you know you're not in the place that you need to be at, or
mm,
the anger
mhm,
that you don't want to be stuck where you're at and that you could do more and you could do better. And you let that fire just burn and get as hot as it can
fuel
and
you. Mhm.
and just and it moves you. like, because you
Yeah.
won't want to be stuck in the same places, and you have to change. Like, and
Yeah.
fire will change. It will turn into all sorts of things.
Hmm.
It can be energy all day long. Like, that's the original energy is
Yeah.
burning. So, like, I like to tell people, I was like, get angry, get angry. Please be angry because you'll be calmer at the end of the day
Hmm.
once you get past it.
So this is super interesting that you bring this up. So I completed a 35-year marriage 3 years ago. And as you've heard me say this, I'm a recovering Mormon. And from when I was a kid, I was angry. But when you get slapped enough, and told to be quiet and told to da 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 da, you start to just internalize it, right? And so then in the marriage, because both of us, our parents yelled and screamed, "Rah!" and fought all the time, even though they were beautiful people, they fought. And we quote unquote said, we're not going to fight. But then that also meant we didn't communicate. And so I never got angry. Dude, I like, I don't know, like 35, 37 years, I just didn't get angry. But my dreams, they would show up in my dreams. I would get sick, all of these things. And it wasn't until, and in my dreams, I mean, the rage was just there. Oh, it was so real. And then when I completed the marriage, stuff started to come out, and I finally got angry. And I finally got angry. And then I got angry. Before, I was sad and I cried all the time because sadness and madness are two sides of the same coin. We're either in our water depression or our fire, right? Burning all the time. And we're not in balance, right? Because when water and fire come together, they produce the steam that pushes us forward, right?
Yep. Yep.
And so for good part of my life, I couldn't get angry. And now, oh, I love getting angry. I mean, and it's easy. It's something I can tap into. I can tap into that rage when I need it, but I know how to move with it now. In fact, that's one of the things that I do with my women that I coach is because we're suffering in rage, we're suffering in grief. But if we don't know how to move these very, very powerful emotions through us, then once we get them out, we need to refill ourselves up, and that's where we start filling ourselves up with the turn on of our bodies, of who we are as a woman and the sensuality that we are. And then we start coming in and we tap into pleasure, but we've got to move those energies. And because, well, women, we're emotional beings. Everyone is, but women, we have that extra layer. And I don't know what to attribute it to other than that's just how we are. That's how we're created, right? But
Yep.
man, when we can understand and move that rage and move that grief and then come into what really brings us joy and pleasure, like we come out a new being and all of a sudden clarity, understanding, new ideas, inspiration, so many things start to open up. But we need to have that fuel, as you were saying, to move us through. And once I was able to tap into that, I was like, oh my gosh, like my healing just like it just rocketed, propelled so forward, so fast. And it's been because I needed to have that rage in me, that anger to help that fire, to get that fire going and get me moving. I get
Well,
that.
and I mean, that a lot of it is, we're taught and programmed not to feel that. Like, throughout the years, like so many people tell you, no, don't get mad, don't get angry, just let it happen. And it's like, turn the other cheek. That was always the favorite one I heard as a kid. It's like, but you only have two to turn. What happens after
They
you
just keep
turn?
hitting you back and
Yeah, it's
forth.
like, and you're not supposed to do anything about it. And
Yeah.
that's not how it goes because at the end of the day, no one wants to be treated badly. So for a person to treat you badly and you know that they wouldn't want to be treated the same way, why should you
Mhm.
allow them to do it?
Yeah.
And you just can't. Like, we're all people. We all came here the same exact way. There's a thing called human universals, and that's things that all humans do across the board. And we know what good and evil is.
Mhm.
Inherently, it's in our DNA. If
Yeah.
you ask anybody, you can say, "What's your definition of good and bad?" And they're
Mm.
usually going to give you some type of answer that's going to be the same across the board.
For sure. For
So
sure.
it lets you know that when people treat you bad, they do it on purpose. They
Yeah.
know that. They know
Yeah.
this. And it's like that should make you angry if nothing else does. Because it's
Yeah.
like they took the time to treat us badly when all it took was a conversation. Or you could have not it's free not to do anything to somebody. You can just walk away from somebody and never do anything to them. But to
Mhm.
purposefully do something that angers them or harms them or makes them
Oh, yeah.
feel depressed, like that
Mhm.
took work. That took
It
effort.
did. It did.
And people don't realize that.
Yeah.
And it's hard to come to terms with usually when people do finally see that. It's it hurts.
Yeah.
And especially from somebody you love. So I mean,
Oh,
it's
yeah, I
just like
know.
yeah, and I can imagine like that was gonna be my first question. My second question to you was tell us about your journey because from what I heard, it inspired me because I had a lot of religious trauma growing up too.
Yeah.
And a lot of people do nowadays. And it's not talked about as much as it should be.
It's thank you. And here's the deal, I come from a very long line of Mormon people. Like my family, my lineage goes back. And so I was born into the church. And I remember I've always been a spiritual being though. Like I came in this world always knowing God, always knowing that there is a God. Like I've just always known. It's been such a gift. I've had this gift of faith. Like I just know. I just it's just who I am. And when I was a kid, between the ages of 5 and 8 years old, I was sexually molested by an extended family member. And I just like I didn't know because in religion you're taught, oh, you can't have sex before marriage and all of these things and no petting, no necking and all of this stuff and we're sensual sexual beings. We're meant to create and procreate, but not just create or not just procreate. That's very limited, all right? And it became my identity. It became how I identified myself and everything in life was that I am of this faith. And so this is who I am. And things started to shift when I started my coaching business back in 2016, the end of 2016. And I started really going on this healing journey. And I had experienced the dark night of my soul between 2011 and 2014. And it was dark. Like I was ready to check out. I had it all planned out, how I was gonna just like leave this earth. And it felt so wonderful to sit in that space. And I knew I had a problem because I I I wanted to die. I didn't want to be here. And when I pulled myself, I started to do things like I was guided by friends, I was guided by energy, I was guided by my mom, and I just started pulling myself up and out of this extremely dark hole that I had placed myself in because I didn't feel like I was enough. And I was judging me and it was terrible. So as I started to pull myself up and out and I started my healing, and then when I started coaching and I continued to just be more every day, I noticed that my person I was married to at the time, that wasn't he didn't want to grow and evolve and expand. And I'm like, how can you not? Like it doesn't make sense to me. Like it's not computing, right? And so there started to be this big gap. And when I realized in 2021, well, first off, my mom was like, "You've got problems." This was in 2019. She's like, "You've got problems in your marriage." I'm like, "What are you talking about, Mom?" Yeah, I don't see it. But it's amazing what we don't want to see when we don't want to see. And so when I started to take a look and see what was there, I'm like, "Oh, well then God and Goddess are so generous. They're so wonderful. I'm so grateful because it was such a part of me that if I had extricated myself completely all at one time, I would have died. It would have been too much for me to comprehend. And so starting in 2018, 2019, things started to happen like I didn't go to church. Like I would go to church, but maybe I might miss once every 3 months. And then my mom got sick, and then I started traveling from Nebraska to Arizona to be with my dad and help with my mom. And then COVID hit. And so then I'm like little by little, I started to have this pulling away. And I just started to start seeing things really clearly. And then when I knew that the marriage had ended, and I had found out from my children that I had been being managed in my relationship by my ex since my kids were like 7 and 9 years old. So it'd been a hot minute. And I was like, "What?" Like, I'm trying to wrap my head all around that. And I'm the kind of person that's like, "Spirit, you gotta let me know, like I know that I'm doing this because I wanna do it right. I don't wanna fuck it up." And so then when I realized I was to complete the marriage, and I said, I'm completing the marriage and I'm done, and I pulled myself out of there, then like Tetris, like things just all sort of fall into place. And I could see it, and I was like, "Oh, damn. Oh." And it was then that I was able to see I've been my sexuality, my trauma, I had been holding so much shame and guilt and fear. Like I was terrified. Like I thought I was going to go to hell if I did anything wrong because that's how it was given to me. There was love, but the fear overran the love big time. And when I started to see that I'd been living in this state of fear that I couldn't even go and explore myself, and if we're going to be raw here, okay, we're going to be raw because men, hello, they've been touching themselves ever since they could pee. All right, because your penis does it's just like a Swiss Army knife. It has multiple uses for it, right? It can pee, it
Yeah.
can orgasm, and it can ejaculate. All right. Well, guess what? The woman, that's not the case, and if we go there, oh, you're going to hell. You're going to hell. And when I realized that I was so terrified of my own body, and I'm thinking, how can I have this part of me and be so afraid of it? It doesn't make sense. How could a God create this beautiful body and not allow it to be beautiful everywhere? Why would it be shameful? If it's in your creation, like, explain that to me. It's not computing in my mind. And my heart was like, this just feels off. And so when I started to see, and I saw it so clearly, and I had to go and face my own demons of the fear that religion had that had instilled in me. And the very first time I had hired a sacred sexuality coach out of Paris back in 2022. And I'll be honest, like I was terrified to go and touch myself. I was like, I just know I'm going to go to hell. And it was debilitating. And as I started ever so slowly, ever so gently with my coach, being able to touch myself. But then the magic happened when the first time I actually looked. I looked at my pussy. And it was there that I saw the goddess. And I realized that I'd been walking around with the goddess this entire time. I had been looking for her out there, and she had always been in here. She had always been with me. But I had a wall that was so big and so thick that it had been built up by what I thought, because I had been taught that it was wrong. And yet here I was, and the goddess is me. I am the goddess. and the power, the power. So then it gets really interesting. As I'm in the throes right now of being certified with the School of Womanly Arts out of New York City as a pleasure coach. And I graduate here in like 3 months, 4 months, 3 months.
Congratulations.
Thank you. It's been a journey because it's forced me to face even more of those levels that needed to be pulled and extricated from my soul. But it's been so beautiful. But what I've learned is that, the men, they're like, oh, yeah, don't hit me there because oh, it hurts so bad. Well, guess what? You guys have 4,000 nerve endings on the tip of your penis. Of course it's going to hurt. Do you want to hear something really cool that you might not know?
Okay.
Guess how many nerve endings are on the clitoris in a woman's vagina?
At least 20,000.
Not that many. 8,000. Double. Okay?
Wow.
8,000. But here's what's really cool. The clitoris, and it looks like a wishbone, right? It's literally where wishes are made and they come true, in my opinion. Um, but the only purpose for the clitoris, its only purpose is pleasure. A woman does not have to be in pleasure to get pregnant. In fact, she could be in sheer trauma and get pregnant. But we have an organ dedicated solely for pleasure. And when we steep into that sacred, holy organ, that is where the goddess lives. That is where we literally step into and up in our complete divine feminine. And that is where our power is. And when we step into that space, that is what propels the woman when she plugs in and goes right into her pussy and starts holding into that space and starts loving her and acknowledging that she is the goddess, that the goddess is there with her, and that we are all gods and goddesses, all of us together. We look at humanity a whole lot more differently. We look at those people who may be angry and we go, they've got some inner child work they're working on. I understand that. The level of love and compassion is given. The level of sovereignty is held. The level of my bullshit meter, it's like 0, right?
Yeah.
So for me, being able to see how religious conditioning was pulling me away from me, the truth of who I am, then I knew that there was something that just wasn't right. It and the trauma that it's left, it's a wide swath. But guess what? Here I go, facing the lion, going, come on, guys. We're doing this. We're going to go. We're going to help women start to stand into their truth, see who they are, realize who they are in spite of all the trauma that's happened to them because they couldn't be where they're at today. Without all the shit that they've had to go through, they couldn't be these beautiful, magical beings. And that's what we celebrate. We celebrate the good, the bad, the ugly, the dark, the light. You take a look at a tapestry. A tapestry is beautiful, but what makes it more beautiful is the contrasting colors. When you've got the dark colors and then you've got the light colors, and what happens, the dark pops the light and it makes them shine brighter. And that's all we are, these beautiful walking tapestries. And it's our darkness that makes us shine brighter. So, yeah.
You definitely know what you're talking about. That's
It's lived experience.
yeah, and that's what usually gets us through is that lived experience. This is something that I've talked about a couple times on this podcast. Um, it was something I had read, and it pertains to this conversation. That did you know that people usually get their outlook of God from their parents?
Oh, for sure.
Like, how we conceive God usually comes from how we conceive our parents and how they treated us as kids and how we saw them as kids. Because, for kids, your parents are God. They provide for you, they do everything
Oh.
that God does.
Mhm.
And so if you have, neglectful parents, parents who traumatize you, any type of situation with them, it literally changes how you perceive your faith.
Yep.
And, people should look more into that because that's something that you wouldn't realize that connects so much if you're not, paying attention to it. You literally, your whole basis of faith can be summed up from your parents.
Mhm.
Because, like, I know a big thing for me was I was a deeply religious kid. I was going to church at, like, 3, and I would go to revivals. I did all, like, this, Southern Pentecostal holiness churches. We were in church from sun up to sundown and past that. Like, we were in church so much that I told my grandma one day, I said, I think I'd rather go to hell if we have to go to church as much as we do. Um, I'm tired.
Oh,
We go to church every day, all day,
yeah.
and it
Mhm.
was a lot. And but my parents weren't there. So,
Mhm.
like, for a lot of me, I didn't think God was there. Like, I always thought that, everything I did was bad and God was gonna send me to hell for it because that's what I was told, and also that my parents weren't there. So, I didn't feel like God cared anything about me. And it
Yeah.
took me having a spiritual awakening to realize that God was in everything, and God is everything, and that
Mhm.
we ourselves are God.
Mhm.
And with that thought process, I was like, we all go through so much.
So much.
And once we realize that that's not what we want anymore, we can build towards better. And the thing is about this is once one human can do it, I think this is the biggest superpower we have as people. Once
Mhm.
one of us does something, we can all do it.
Mhm.
Every single one of us can be like, I want to try that. And we can mentally prepare ourselves to learn how to do that thing. And
Mhm.
it's amazing because it only takes one of us out of the billions of us that there are to
Mhm.
do something, and then it makes it reachable for all of us.
Well, it's like we're giving each other permission.
Yeah,
And it's funny because it's like, do I need permission to do this? No, but yes, because I always had to ask permission to do anything as a kid growing up so that it becomes instilled. And so, but when we do this, then we literally unknowingly and unspoken give everybody else permission to go and rise into their greatness.
yep, yep.
Yeah.
You think that's an amazing thing? It's an amazing thing. We have some amazing superpowers as humans. People don't like to think about it like superpowers, but they are.
Oh, they
Like
are. They
there's
are.
people that can do all sorts of things on this planet, and it's amazing. Like you can't say anything else about it, but there are amazing things that people can do, and the fact that we can all do it if we put our effort into it says something.
Yeah.
And we literally come up with things that no one else has ever done before in our lives. Like, I mean, look at the internet for what it is. Like, we're in different states talking to each other, and it's not over a dial-up phone. Like, I remember times of rotary phones and the nonsense that you had to keep doing like this with just to get the number to go through. And like, we've come so far in such a short time, and that shows us how far we can go when
Mhm.
when the things are stacked up against us. When things are stacked up against us, we can
And we
literally
think that things are stacked up against us. They literally may be, but I'm also going to say I know I created all of my stuff in my life. I did
Yep,
it,
yep,
right? I'm the one who attracted the person who wound up being a narcissist in my life. And at the same time, apparently that was the medicine that I needed in this lifetime.
yep,
So I can't diss that person because I was in agreement.
yep.
Right? So
What you allow.
then if I need to get mad, I can get mad at myself, but then why? Because I'm just learning,
Yeah,
right?
yep.
Yeah,
And that's our lives, is
it is
learning.
our lives. Hell
Like, we
yes, it's
just
our lives.
that's all we do is learn, and we either learn for the better or we learn for the worse, but
Yeah,
we learn,
we learn. We learn.
and
We
it's
learn.
up to
And when
us.
people say, when people say like, "Oh, why does God do bad things to good people?" And it's not God doing it.
No, it's
It's
not.
it's 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 us needing to learn more lessons and go, "Okay, what's the gold here? We're in this dark space. What's the gold that I'm supposed to bring from this?" And everything that
Yeah,
happens, we it all the dots connect. All the dots connect.
yeah,
The universe, God, goddess, there's not a dot that they miss.
yeah.
It's all counted for, and it's all gold. And
I was
eventually we
trying to
get it.
tell him. I was trying to tell a friend recently. He was like, "I'm in this bad place in my life. Like nothing's going right. Nobody will help me." I said, "How are you helping yourself, though?"
Yep,
I said,
that was gonna be my question too.
How, like, how are you? What are you doing to get yourself out of this situation? Why are
Yeah.
you waiting on other people to save you? Because no one's coming.
Mm.
This is the thing. You have to. God loves those who help themselves. God helps those
Yes.
who help themselves. Like, and what are you doing to get out of this situation?
Yeah.
And he didn't say anything, and I was like, "This is what I did when I was in your situation."
Mm.
I was like, and I gave him a list of things that he could do. He didn't talk to me for like a week after that, and I was like,
'Cause it was a
"You
truth
see,
bomb.
yeah." I was like, "You don't want to do anything. You like being where you're at because you think because you were good to other people, they should now help you and get you out of the situation you're in." And I was like, "And that can't be the case. Like, if no one sees you trying, no one's gonna want to help
Yeah.
because they know they can only do so much, and you have to do the rest." Like, you
Mhm.
just have to, like, get yourself out of to a place where you don't deal with that anymore and get yourself out of there because it feels so much more satisfying to know that you saved yourself. Like,
Mm.
even though people didn't show up, you still were able to get yourself out of this situation and
Yeah.
move forward and get to a place now where you can look back on them and like, "Man, I was in a terrible place then," but you're not there now.
No.
Like, yeah, and that's a big thing about it. And he just didn't wanna listen at the time. I was like, "Maybe tomorrow, maybe
Yeah,
tomorrow."
maybe. Here's I love everything that you've just said, and ultimately what happens is I can say this because this is what I've done in the past, is I've given my power away to other people thinking that they could rescue me, save me, heal me, do these things. Um, and whenever I gave my power away, I was always the victim and I was powerless. And when I chose and continue to choose, and some days it's a daily process. It really is. It's easier some days than it is other days, right? But when I say no, I get to own all of it. I get to own my power, which means if I'm owning my power, I get to release the victimhood and I get to own the fact that I get to be responsible for the good, the bad, the ugly in my life. And I then choose to stand in my sovereignty. And that right there, that's that's power. That's pure, unadulterated, raw power. And we own it all. And then we see that we're limitless. Has anyone ever reached the limitations of the human soul? No. No, not even close. Not even
Darn
close,
near.
right? So who's to say what's to come next? We're entering technically tomorrow that is the actual day of the age of Aquarius coming in. We've been in Pluto's been in Pisces for the past 15 years and a whole lot of fuckery has happened in there, right? And here we are for the next 20 years we're going to be in like we're within cycles within cycles within cycles within cycles cosmically, right? Who's to say what is gonna come next? We don't know if the internet happened. Anything can happen if COVID happened, anything can happen, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Like, it's magical. Who's to say that we're not walking around with the most advanced technological computers that's our bodies?
yeah.
I mean, it's astounding to me. There's just no limit, only what we stop and I got to a point in my life where I was like, I just believe everything because somewhere it's true somewhere. It may not be true in this reality, in this realm, but it's true somewhere. And so instead of saying, "Oh, you're a liar, you don't know what this is," I don't know that. And I'm not gonna go do the research to try and disprove 'em. That's a whole waste of my energy, right? So I just gotta go, you know what? If it's true for you, it's gotta be true for somebody else too. And that's okay. This is what I see as true, and it's true for me, and it may not be true for you, and that's okay, right? And being able to just have that embrace of humanity, have that embrace for where people are at, because we don't know, it didn't come with a book, and the book that we've been given, there are a lot of very beautiful truths in it, but there are a lot of stuff in there that doesn't make sense. And we get to discern that for ourselves.
Yeah.
We are that powerful.
I mean, every book that we read is going to be different compared to who's reading it. And
Yes.
it's always the perspective of the person. And that's part of what my book is about. And it's about the multiverse of perception and the fact that we are our own universe. Each one of us are our own universe. And because of that, if we want to see the choices we could have made in our lives, all we have to do is look at other people.
Mhm.
Like we all were born. That's where we started.
Mhm.
And everyone makes a choice at a certain age.
Mhm.
And then you make a bunch of other choices. Then you make a bunch of other choices. And from that, you can see, well, if I'd have done that, that's how that would have worked out. So I'm glad I didn't do that. Or, dang, I wish I would have done that because they are now this.
Mhm.
And like, it just depends on the choice you make at the time. And because your perception is different than everybody else's, you live in a multiverse every day. And,
Mhm.
a lot of people, a lot of scientists like to talk about quantum and, multiverse theory. And they're saying that you're living all your choices till the moment you choose. Like that's when, your reality takes hold. Is once you make a choice, that means it puts you on a path of certain realities.
Absolutely.
It takes you off of, the infinite reality and it puts you on a course. Once you get on that course, you have to make other choices that, move your life like this and branches off into other stuff. And you can literally see all of the choices that it like with the humankind the way it is, all the people that have lived, are living, will live, we will still never see all the choices that humanity could have ever made.
No. Isn't that
And that's
beautiful?
that's amazing. Like
Amazing.
it's literally
Amazing.
we're in a multiverse and you don't have to go anywhere to see that. And it's not the fact that, all your choices are being made all at once, but they are because you can see it in other people.
Yes. Ooh, 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 I love that perspective. Ooh, that's
Yeah.
juicy. Mark, that's
Yeah.
juicy. Yeah,
Thank you. Careful with that. That's
that's beautiful, man.
but I mean, it's just something we don't think about in a given day. Like once we know we can do something, we have the choice to do it or not. No
Yeah.
one can really stop us.
Mm-mm.
Like, I mean, we're governed by laws. Those are laws that we made to govern ourselves. We put those laws in place,
Yep.
which shows you how we process things. That's what
Mhm.
we do to ourselves every day. We give ourselves laws and, we're programmed with these laws and all this stuff, but we give them to ourselves in other aspects of our lives and we don't even pay attention to it. Like there'll be laws that, are above us that we do every day and listen to, but we're still instilling into our children, not even realizing it, just because of the way we were taught.
Yep.
It just comes out because that's what I was taught and that's what I learned. That's how I'm programmed. It happens without even thinking about it at this point. And it just keeps the cycle going until you have that moment, whoever, whenever that is, that you break from that cycle or you
Yeah.
break from that programming. And I feel like everybody needs to have a spiritual awakening or a psychotic break at some point
Mhm.
because that's what gets you out of that.
Mm.
It's your brain telling you that
Mhm.
you can't do this anymore.
Yep.
And how are you going to get out of it? Because now you couldn't take it so much that your brain broke and it puts you in a place where everything seems real, even though only parts of it are, but it's real to you.
Yes.
Everything
Yes.
you're going through is real to you. So your
Yes.
situations you're seeing are real because you're experiencing it,
Yeah.
but that's all in your perception,
Yeah.
which can always be changed
Mhm.
and which can always change your choices.
Yes.
So we have to think about the things we do.
Deep, good, great conversation. I love these kind of conversations. They're the type that light me up.
Me too. Me
Yeah,
too.
get up.
But I mean, it's amazing. It's just
Mhm.
amazing.
It is. It is. It is.
We have to, but we have to get ready to exit. Thank you for being on the show. You're
Oh
gonna
my
have to come
gosh.
back.
Oh, please. Yes,
You're gonna come back.
absolutely. This has
I had
been
a lot of other
super,
questions. I
super fun.
promise.
I believe
I had so
you.
many other questions.
I
Uh,
believe you.
but we're gonna. What I want to do, I'm gonna do something different this time because I want to start doing this instead of telling the question for the next guest. I want you to email me a question for the next guest without you knowing who the next guest is.
Okay.
That way people can tune in to find out what the question was
Nice.
instead of hearing it on there and knowing what the question's going to be. But
Nice.
also, I want to tell my audience that we're going to start giving away like books and prizes for people
Mhm.
because to help people out. I have a copy of Carl Jung's The Red Book I want to
Mhm.
give away, and that's for people who subscribe to the channel and comment and all that. And at the end of the month, I'll pick somebody and give a copy of Carl Jung's Red Book away. I like to finish I like to exit with this. Thank you for today. Thank you for yesterday, and thank you for tomorrow. Always remember to question your reality, and at every end there is a beginning. You guys take care. Thank you so much for being on the show,
Thank you. Such a
and you
pleasure.
guys and you guys take care.